Have you ever felt a sudden chill of sadness when you hear about something tragic happening to a young, bright person who was so full of hope for the future? The story I'm going to tell is about Tessa Majors, an 18-year-old college freshman whose life came to a tragic end in a way that is hard to believe. It's tough to imagine, but this event holds important lessons about being cautious and caring for each other. We'll start with the night Tessa was attacked, then explore who she was, the suspects involved, what unfolded in court, and how everyone felt afterward. We will also discuss safety in public places, particularly parks at night, and how a place that once felt safe can suddenly turn into a risky situation. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps us share important stories like Tessa's. Plus, it shows us that you appreciate the hard work we put into bringing you all the details. Tessa Majors was born on May 11, 2001, and she spent her childhood in Charlottesville, Virginia. The city is where the University of Virginia stands, buzzing with college life. It's a place that really cares about learning and fresh ideas, making it feel alive with possibilities. Tessa's dad was an English professor at James Madison University. He wrote a bunch of books, which meant Tessa lived in a house where reading, writing, and learning were really important. In high school, she attended St. Anne's Belfield School. She was a great student who loved to do many things. She ran cross-country, led the creative writing club, volunteered for political campaigns, and made music. Each activity brought her joy, but little did she know, something unexpected was about to change everything. She played the bass and sang in a band named Patient Zero, and they even recorded an album. Tessa and her band were gearing up for an exciting winter break filled with shows, especially in her hometown. She wanted everyone to experience her passion for music up close. Tessa had always dreamed of college, and when the time finally came, she found herself stepping into the bustling streets of New York City, ready to begin her journey at Barnard College. Barnard is a school just for women, and it has a special connection to Columbia University. Barnard and Columbia are located in the Morningside Heights area of Manhattan, right next to Morningside Park. The park sits right beside the neighborhoods of Harlem and the Upper West Side. It's always bustling with students, families, and all sorts of people wandering through, creating a lively atmosphere that feels full of stories waiting to unfold. Tessa was just starting her journey as a freshman, diving into her very first semester. She felt a thrill at the thought of diving into journalism, eager to keep writing and uncover the secrets of New York's vibrant music scene. She was a curious person, always eager to explore new things and meet new faces. In the spring of 2019, just before Tessa started her first semester, something strange happened in Morningside Park. There was a sudden rise in the number of robberies reported, and it left everyone feeling uneasy. According to the official reports, the park experienced a shocking rise in robberies that spring, with 17 incidents recorded, a stark contrast to just 7 the previous year. The police discovered something unsettling. A lot of the suspects in these robberies were just kids, around 12 to 14 years old. It felt like the same few kids were caught in a loop, repeating their misdeeds time and again. Barnard College got safety briefings, and the police attempted to share warnings. But not everyone knew about the recent rise in crime, or just how dangerous it could become. Some students believed the park was usually safe, even when they walked there at night or as the sun began to set. Tessa Majors had just moved to the city, unaware that danger was lurking just around the corner. On December 11th, 2019, a moment arrived that would alter everything. It was around 7 p.m. when Tessa strolled through Morningside Park, only a few blocks away from Barnard's campus. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, casting shadows everywhere as darkness began to creep in. She could have been coming back from dinner, on her way to a friend's house, or simply walking through the park like so many other students. The night was quiet, but something felt off. Yet, 3 teenagers were lurking in the park that night. They were just 13 and 14 years old, and they had come out that night with a plan to find someone to rob. Later on, they revealed that they had been trying to decide which person in the park would be their target. As soon as they spotted Tessa, they chose her. In the next few moments, fear gripped my heart. One of the 3 lunged at Tessa, while another wrapped their arms around her neck from behind, and together they attempted to snatch her phone away. Tessa stood her ground, determined not to give up her phone. She bit one of them so hard that blood started to drip from his finger. In that moment of chaos, a knife came into play. Tessa felt the sharp pain as the knife pierced her skin, each stab sending a jolt through her body. The last strike was the worst, a deep cut that seemed to reach her very heart. She let out a piercing scream, calling for help as she shouted that someone was trying to rob her. The 3 suspects quickly searched through her pockets, their eyes darting around nervously, before they dashed off into the shadows. Tessa, hurt and struggling, made her way up the stairs to Morningside Drive. As she finally made it to the top of the stairs at the corner of 116th Street, her legs gave out beneath her, and she fell to the ground. A security guard nearby discovered her awake, but she was bleeding and feeling very weak. Tessa spoke up about what had happened, and then someone quickly dialed 911. She was rushed to Mount Sinai Morningside Hospital, but her injuries were too serious to overcome. Tessa Majors, just 18, was declared dead. The news of the killing traveled fast, sending chills through the town. A college freshman strolled near campus when suddenly a group of kids, barely teenagers, pounced on him. The air was thick with tension as he realized he was in trouble. Even though many areas of New York City were safer than they used to be, events like this made people feel uneasy once more, especially around Barnard College and Columbia University. The following day, December 12th, the police moved quickly, sensing something was off. They had a detailed description of the suspects, right down to the clothes they wore. Officers noticed a 13-year-old boy sneaking around who looked just like the one they were searching for. He was taken into custody, and the investigators, determined not to make the same mistakes as in past cases like the Central Park 5 from 1989, decided to record his questioning on video. The boy found himself facing charges of felony murder. Felony murder is a serious concept. It means that if you are involved in a dangerous crime, like a robbery, and someone ends up dying during that event, you can still be charged with murder. This can happen even if you weren't the one who actually caused the death. The police discovered that the boy had 2 partners in crime, and they were both just 14 years old. There were 2 boys, Luciano Lewis and Rashawn Weaver. A 14-year-old was taken into custody that day, but surprisingly, they were let go shortly after. The 3rd suspect, who was also 14, had been on the run for 2 long weeks. The detectives suspected that some relatives could be hiding him, biding their time for the bite mark on his hand to heal, since Tessa had bitten one of her attackers. At last, after the police shared his picture on December 26th, they managed to catch him. They asked him a lot of questions, and then they let him go with his lawyers while they continued to dig deeper into the case. As the days went by, a strange tension settled over Morningside Heights and Harlem, making everyone feel on edge. The thought that kids so young could be involved in this was truly surprising. At the same time, Tessa's funeral was happening in Virginia, where everyone gathered to say their goodbyes. Her family, friends, and classmates from high school gathered, along with people from Barnard, to share their memories. Everyone agreed that Tessa had a bright spirit, a creative mind, and an endless supply of energy. She had a deep passion for writing and music. Those who cared for her couldn't believe that a regular stroll in the park could end so tragically. After she passed away, her father, who taught English, penned a heartfelt piece about her. He brought back memories of her grand dreams and the fact that she had just graduated from high school that very spring. In New York, the police were hard at work, piecing together clues that could unlock the mystery. In February 2020, a grand jury made a shocking decision. They indicted Rashawn Weaver, just 14 years old, on serious charges of second-degree murder and robbery. What could have led to such a dramatic turn of events? They decided to charge him as an adult due to how serious the crime was. Just like that, Luciano Lewis found himself in the same situation. Court documents revealed that Tessa had put up a fierce struggle, leaving behind DNA under her fingernails that matched one of the suspects. Whispers spread about a phone call that had been recorded. In it, one suspect spoke with his father, revealing a shocking confession. He had tried to take Tessa's phone. Everything seemed to lead back to these boys being involved. The 13-year-old, taken into custody just a day after Tessa's murder, was treated a little differently due to his age. On June 3, 2020, he admitted in family court that he was involved in the robbery plan. He claimed he never actually stabbed Tessa, but the truth hung in the air, leaving everyone wondering what really happened. The surveillance footage revealed something unsettling. It suggested he never laid a finger on her, but he did pass the knife to the one who did. Since he was young and didn't actually do the stabbing, the prosecutors decided to accept a guilty plea for robbery and let go of the murder charge. He received an 18-month sentence in juvenile detention. Tessa's parents believed the punishment was too lenient. They wrote a statement explaining how the person who hurt Tessa showed no regret. They emphasized that giving the knife to the attacker played a big role in what happened to her. In September 2021, Luciano Lewis admitted to committing second-degree murder and first-degree robbery. Tessa's family felt a sense of relief knowing that the killers were finally being held accountable for their actions. A month later, in October 2021, Lewis found out his fate. He was sentenced to 9 years to life in prison, and on top of that, he got a few extra years for the robbery. What would happen next? The uncertainty loomed over him like a dark cloud. While waiting for his sentence, Lewis found himself in trouble. He got into fights and had things he shouldn't have, making it clear that he wasn't behaving well at all. On December 16, 2021, Rashawn Weaver, the person thought to have stabbed Tessa, admitted to second-degree murder, first-degree robbery, and second-degree robbery. During the hearing, Weaver confessed that he had deliberately taken Tessa's life by stabbing her. On January 19, 2022, he received a sentence of 14 years to life in prison. The two older boys can ask for parole after they finish their minimum time, but there's no promise they will be let go. When news broke that two 14-year-olds were charged with murder, it sent shockwaves through the community, leaving everyone with a whirlwind of questions. People wondered how kids so young could be out at night, scheming to pull off robberies in the park. Some pointed fingers at the families, while others thought it was the absence of youth programs that caused the trouble. A few even suggested that the city should send more police to patrol that park. The rise in robberies at Morningside Park had been mentioned earlier this year, but many didn't understand just how serious and near the threat really was. Barnard College shared safety tips. and Columbia University had its own campus security, but none of it could keep Tessa safe. She found herself in a dangerous situation, standing before three teens who had bad intentions and were looking for someone to target. Because Tessa Majors was white and the suspects were black, and because Barnard and Columbia are close to neighborhoods with a history of gentrification, there were also worries about race and class. Some people couldn't help but think about what might have happened if Tessa had come from a different background, one that wasn't as privileged. Would the reaction have been the same? The question lingered in the air, heavy with uncertainty. Some people said that because the suspects were so young, they might not really understand what would happen because of what they did. The conversation often grew intense, with emotions running high on both sides. But one thing everyone could agree on was that Tessa's death was truly heartbreaking. Someone took away her dreams and plans, leaving her in a dark place. Tessa's murder brought back memories of the 1989 Central Park jogger case, where a woman was brutally attacked and a group of teens found themselves in deep trouble. The teens, once thought guilty, were found to be innocent, and their convictions were overturned many years later. The New York Police Department took extra precautions to avoid any slip-ups. They made sure to record every interview with the suspects in Tessa's case and quickly brought in the prosecutors to help. In this case, the clues were undeniable. Confessions and DNA pointed straight to the suspects, leaving no room for doubt. The memory of the Central Park 5 lingered in the minds of many, sparking concerns about whether it was truly fair and accurate to question young people. The media coverage was massive. Tessa's story traveled through the bustling streets of New York City and reached far beyond, capturing the attention of many. It was heartbreaking for everyone to see someone so young, just a freshman who had barely completed her first semester at Barnard. Her dad wrote heartfelt notes about how much she loved music. Some people shared pictures of her on stage with her band. Tessa's father was a writer, and he used his words to share his sorrow. Many parents reading about the case couldn't help but feel a heavy sadness for the struggle he was facing. As the days went by, the local leaders made promises of increased security. They put up guard booths at Morningside Park, kept the safety shuttle running later into the night, and made sure there were plenty of lights shining bright. The city council decided to install cameras that would keep an eye on the park in real time. Everyone wished that no more young lives would be taken away from that place. In 2021, a student named Davide Giri was tragically stabbed to death not far from where Tessa's case unfolded. This shocking event sparked conversations about an unsettling similarity, leaving everyone on edge as they recalled the past. Even though New York City has seen a drop in crime over the years, these stabbings remind us that danger can still lurk around the corner, especially when a small group or just one person is set on causing harm. The tale of Tessa Majors lingered in the air, even after the suspects faced their judgment. Her memory lingers at Barnard College, where students often share stories about her, pondering how easily it could have happened to anyone else. She was walking toward a bright future, filled with music, writing, and exciting new adventures. A simple stroll in the park changed everything forever. Those who knew Tessa believed she would want her memory to serve as a reminder for everyone to show kindness, watch over their friends, and stay alert for any warning signs in their neighborhoods. Her heart was full of kindness. In high school, she jumped into political campaigns, dreaming of a future in journalism. She had a knack for making friends in an instant, always drawing people in with her warm smile. Thinking about her brings back the sadness, but it also keeps her story alive, making sure it never fades away. It lingers in our minds, urging us to remain vigilant and do everything we can to keep one another safe. The city, the colleges, and the people living in Harlem Morningside Heights, and nearby learned a tough lesson from what happened to Tessa. We could notice extra security in parks or new programs aimed at helping troubled teens, but no amount of change can take away the deep sadness of losing someone so young. Some people used her case to discuss what happens to young people in the justice system. There was a heated discussion about whether 14-year-olds should be treated like adults when it came to serious charges. The kids could have been facing tough times at home, struggling with their feelings, or not having anyone to show them the right path, which might have pushed them to behave so violently. Some people said that murder is still murder, and if someone can think ahead and plan a robbery while pulling out a knife, then perhaps they should face the same consequences as adults. The final court results were surprising. The 13-year-old received just 18 months, while the 14-year-olds faced sentences that could stretch on for much longer. This could be viewed as a middle ground, trying to balance the notion that young people can grow and change with the harsh reality that Tessa had her life taken from her. Tessa's family couldn't shake the feeling that it was unfair for the youngest suspect to get just 18 months. They felt a storm brewing inside them, a mix of anger and confusion that wouldn't go away. In their statement, they said the boy didn't feel sorry at all. He even gave the knife to the attacker, making things even worse. But the law considered his age and the smaller part he played. At the same time, the two older ones who got more involved faced much harsher consequences. In murder cases involving very young suspects, the debate over justice always seems to spark intense discussions. Some people think everyone deserves a second chance, but others believe that some actions are just too terrible to ever be forgiven. No matter what side you choose, the pain of Tessa's death lingers on, haunting everyone it touched. If we go back in time and wonder, was there a way to stop it? There's been a sudden rise in robberies at Morningside Park, and it's alarming to find that many of the suspects are just 12 to 14 years old. Those who lived close by could feel that something was not right. If only they had set off louder alarms or had more police out on the streets, perhaps Tessa's murder could have been prevented. What if there had been more youth programs, more family outreach, or earlier interventions? Could these young suspects have been guided away from a life of crime? The thought lingers, leaving us to wonder what might have been. But nobody really knows for certain. Sometimes, a sudden event can turn our world upside down, making us realize just how valuable each day truly is. Barnard College and Columbia University began to examine their safety measures closely. They extended the shuttle bus hours, added more guards around the park, and warned students to be careful at night. But Tessa's story still hangs in the air, echoing in the thoughts of many. Students tend to stick together in groups more frequently. They hesitate, glancing around nervously, before deciding to cut through the park alone after dark. They watch their friends closely. These may seem like tiny changes, but they could make a big difference in lowering risks. Meanwhile, everyone insists that Tessa wasn't to blame for what occurred. She was just walking near campus, like so many others do each week, completely unaware that 3 teens were hiding nearby, watching her every move. Some people say that Tessa's murder received a lot of attention in the news because she came from a well-respected family. She was white, and she went to a famous women's college. People start to question whether a girl of color from a less well-known school would have caught the same spotlight. Many people worry about how the news is reported, especially when some stories make it to the front page while others are left behind. It's a chilling fact that Tessa was robbed and killed in a shocking way, right near a well-known Ivy League school. This kind of incident always grabs the media's attention, regardless of who the victim is. The story hit hard, especially since the attackers were just kids themselves. Tessa's father, a writer, poured out his sorrow for everyone to see. making it all the more powerful. Tessa's case served as a chilling reminder to everyone in New York City about the crucial need to ensure that parks and streets remain safe. People began to understand that even when crime rates drop, danger can still lurk around every corner. Sometimes, something really sad can occur right when you think everything is fine. The police put on a big display, making sure everyone noticed their increased presence. They added more lights, set up guard booths at the entrances of Morningside Park, and brought in extra officers to patrol at night. Local politicians made a bold promise. They would uncover the funds needed to install cameras. Sometimes, the changes arrived just a bit too late for Tessa, but maybe they could save someone else down the line. That's what we're counting on, anyway. But if you take a closer look, you might realize that the issue could be more complicated than just counting police officers or cameras in the area. Some believe the main problem is what drives 13- and 14-year-olds to roam the streets at night, armed with a knife, prepared to rob and hurt unsuspecting strangers. Are they missing the help they need at home or the support they should get at school? Do they find themselves in difficult neighborhoods where good choices are hard to come by? Do they feel the pull of risky peer pressure? There are many opinions on what happened, but the heartbreaking reality is that Tessa Majors was taken from us by a crime involving 3 young people. Now, we all wonder how we can stop it from happening again. Tessa's father shared stories about her frequent texts, how she was adjusting to her freshman year, and the excitement of her first gigs in New York. She felt a rush of pride for her band, Patient Zero, especially with the new songs they had just recorded. She was a writer too, running her high school's creative writing club. Plus, she had an internship at a local newspaper in Virginia. Her father said she was like a little spark, always asking questions and eager to lend a hand to others. When a family loses a daughter, it creates a deep emptiness that is hard to fill. Those who read his words could feel the deep sorrow of a parent forced to lay their child to rest. At Barnard, Tessa's death sent a ripple of shock through everyone. Other first-year students, just beginning to understand her, felt a chill as they grasped how delicate life truly is. Support was given, and tributes were made. Students carefully laid flowers and heartfelt notes at the spot where Tessa fell. A vigil was organized, bringing everyone together to share their sadness and honor her memory. In the stillness, whispers filled the air as people wondered how something like this could ever occur. They wondered, are we really safe walking around near campus? The college said they would take action to alert new students about places that could be risky, particularly when night falls. Tessa's friends from Virginia shared music videos and short clips of her singing, wanting everyone to see the real her, not just the sad stories in the news. As the days went by, the story kept popping up in the news, especially with each suspect facing their court dates. Every time there was an update, Tessa's family felt the weight of her absence all over again. A 13-year-old faced a tough fate, being sent away for 18 months to a juvenile center. The 2 14-year-olds faced serious consequences, ending up with adult charges. Their sentences were shocking. One received 9 years to life, while the other was sentenced to 14 years to life. People are still wondering what lies ahead for these kids. 9 or 14 years may seem like a brief time for a murder, but to life means they could remain in prison for much longer if they can't persuade the parole board that they've truly changed. Even if they manage to escape, the haunting memory of their actions will always linger. Media outlets frequently wondered if this was a crime that would be remembered for generations, something so shocking that it would stay in the minds of New Yorkers forever. People said it reminded them of old crimes from long ago. But Tessa's name spread like wildfire, reaching every corner of the land. Some referred to her death as a political football, as it became a topic for discussions about crime rates, policing, and the city's budget. Tessa was a new college student, full of dreams and ambitions. She wrote songs that came from her heart and always looked out for those around her. That's the way her family hopes everyone will think of her. She wasn't merely a victim or a symbol. She was a real person who cherished singing, writing, and spending time with her friends. There's also the question of whether the news is fair when it covers stories about race. Some people were concerned that Tessa's background as a white girl from a middle-class family, combined with the suspects being black and from less privileged neighborhoods, could reignite old tensions that often bubble up around Ivy League schools in historically black areas. Columbia University and Barnard are seen as schools that have a lot of money and resources at their disposal. Harlem, just next door, has been changing in surprising ways. Tessa's death stirred up old feelings for many. It raised questions about who truly belongs, how resources are divided, and the way the police interact with different communities. Some people believed that the teenagers who hurt Tessa had done something really bad, regardless of where they came from. As the arguments raged on, life in Morningside Heights carried on, unaware of the tension brewing just beneath the surface. People continued to visit Morningside Park, but they did so with a sense of unease. The city believed that brighter lights, more police officers, and extra cameras could stop crimes from happening again. In late 2021, another shocking event unfolded when a Columbia graduate student named Davide Giri was tragically stabbed and killed not far from that same area. That made everyone think about Tessa once more, stirring up a sense of fear that the place might not be as safe as they hoped. The city promised to do more to keep people safe, but sometimes the changes come too slowly, or they might not be enough to stop someone who is really set on causing harm. Tessa's friends in the band might have wanted to keep making music, but it was tough without their main singer or bassist. The silence felt heavy, and they wondered if they could ever find their rhythm again. In Charlottesville, her high school held a special ceremony to remember her. Those who cared for her insisted that Tessa should not be remembered only for her last moments. They want everyone to remember her for her kindness, her amazing stories, her funny jokes, and the bright dreams she had for what was to come. That's why we need to tell her story with care and truthfulness. She wasn't doing anything crazy. She was just going about her day, like so many other students do every single day. Tessa's story holds some important lessons for us to discover. First, watch your step when you're out alone in quiet places at night. You never know what might be lurking in the shadows. If a city suddenly experiences a rise in robberies, it's important to inform everyone right away and quickly increase police patrols. Be careful of young people who seem to be heading down a dangerous road. It's important to help them find a better way before something really bad occurs. Next, we explore how the justice system attempts to weigh the age of the suspects against the gravity of the crime. The 13-year-old faced a different kind of judgment in family court compared to the 14-year-olds who were treated like adults. In the end, this situation reveals just how delicate life can be. Tessa's friends and family never thought something so terrifying could happen right near their school. Tessa's death made Barnard College realize they needed to find a way to keep students aware of the dangers lurking nearby. At many schools, new students are given important safety orientations. They learn to stick together in groups, stay in bright, well-lit places, and to use campus shuttles or security escorts when it gets dark. These tips are crucial for keeping safe on campus. But sometimes, students don't see how quickly things can turn dangerous, especially if they come from small towns or familiar campus settings. Tessa's story shows us how important it is to stay aware of our surroundings. But it's also a fact that no one can completely control what people do when they're determined to break the law. Tessa found herself in a tough spot when she crossed paths with those teens all by herself in the park. The whole situation wrapped up with the three suspects making different plea deals. A young person confessed to a robbery in family court and was sentenced to 18 months. The other two admitted to the crime of murder as adults, facing minimum sentences of 9 years and 14 years, both leading to life. Even after they complete their time, they won't simply be released into the world without further consequences. They must prove to the parole board that they have truly transformed. If the board doesn't agree, they could end up stuck in prison for a lot longer than they expected. Many people think these sentences aren't harsh enough for ending someone's life. Some people believe that since they were young, there should be a chance for them to change their paths for the better. Even if we can't decide on the best way to punish, we can still keep Tessa's memory alive by thinking about the person she truly was. She loved music, writing stories, and exploring new adventures. She had a strong desire to become a better journalist. She experienced her first New York concert, her band taking the stage in the bustling city, and a sense of pride filled her as she took that important step. She had just started at Barnard a few months ago, but it looked like she was fitting in just fine. Her life ending so suddenly serves as a chilling reminder that we should never assume we are safe, even in the places we believe are the most secure. In the months following Tessa's death, numerous families began to write letters to the school or share their thoughts online. They urged their own children to be more cautious, hoping to prevent any similar tragedies. Parents of new college students, particularly in bustling cities like New York, often find themselves having the same serious conversations about safety over and over again. Barnard and Columbia stepped up their safety measures, working hard to keep students in the loop about what was happening. A group of students came together to hold events in memory of Tessa. They aimed to shine a light on the serious issues of teen violence, the rising crime in the city, and the urgent need to reach out to young people who might be heading down a dangerous path. Many wonder how kids so young can be involved in something as terrible as murder. Did they really grasp how serious it was? Were they just trying to steal from someone, and then things spiraled out of control? No matter what anyone says, Tessa is still missing, and that fact hangs heavy in the air. Her father's words about her last days are truly gut-wrenching. He talked about the text messages, the phone calls, and the bright energy that Tessa always seemed to bring along. He needed everyone to see that she was not just another number in a crime report. The pain he felt drove him to stand up against what he believed was an unfair system, particularly for the youngest suspect who had only spent 18 months behind bars. But the father knew deep down that the greatest tragedy was losing Tessa herself. No decision from the court can change that. He mentioned that Tessa had left behind a treasure trove of poems, songs, and snippets of writing that serve as a constant reminder of how truly special she was. Some people think about whether having more police in the park that night might have prevented the attack. Some people believe the true problem is that these teens should have received better guidance long before they chose to rob Tessa. Big cities often hide deep problems that are tough to fix. Yet, Tessa's disappearance caused the leaders to scrutinize Morningside Park with newfound intensity. They brightened up the dark corners, cut back the wild plants, and set up cameras and guards to watch over the place. At first, it gave people a sense of security, but the shocking stabbing of Davide Giri in 2021 proved that no answer is completely safe. No matter how tight the security is, if someone is truly set on doing something wrong, they can find a way to make it happen. The news highlighted how Tessa's murder brought back memories of past tragedies in Central Park and other areas of the city. For example, the media quickly recalled the 1989 Central Park jogger case, where a young woman was brutally attacked by a group of teenagers. But that case was infamous for false confessions and innocent people being locked away, while Tessa's situation had confessions and evidence that were much clearer and more reliable. But it brought back memories for older New Yorkers of a time when walking in city parks at night felt much scarier. Crime had decreased significantly over the years, making Tessa's murder feel like a chilling reminder of a more perilous past. With the suspects sentenced and the case fading from the headlines, a lingering question remains. How is Tessa's family holding up? The pain doesn't just vanish once the court is finished. The family may feel a tiny bit of relief knowing the killers were caught, but it doesn't bring Tessa back to them. Her friends work hard to remember her by playing her songs and sharing her words. At St. Anne's Belfield, her high school, there are moments when the air feels different, as if the events held there are whispers of her spirit, reminding everyone of her presence. At Barnard College, whispers about her linger whenever safety in Morningside Park is mentioned. They shared how she was thrilled to join the college community, and how she appeared prepared to face any challenge that came her way. When something terrible occurs, it's common to feel a mix of fear and anger. Some people get really fixated on making sure the wrongdoers face consequences. Some people are trying to uncover the hidden issues that led these boys to act in such a way. Everyone thinks that Tessa's death was unfair and heartbreaking. She never should have faced such brutality. When we consider ways to stop crimes from happening in the future, we might discuss brighter lights, increased police presence, or improved programs for kids who are struggling. But there's something else we need, something you can't touch. Compassion, empathy, and the courage to step in when we notice kids heading in the wrong direction. City officials often attempt to support after-school programs, but sometimes their efforts fall short. People say that Tessa was really brave when she fought back and bit one of the attacker's fingers. This might have made things worse, stirring up even more anger in the attacker. But Tessa found herself in a scary situation, and anyone else in her shoes would likely try to fight back. Some people in the neighborhood admired her bravery, noting that she didn't simply give up her phone. Some people thought that if she had worked together with them, maybe she would have been safe. Unfortunately, the answer will always remain a mystery. What really happened was that those boys had a secret plan to steal from her, and they brought a knife with them. Tessa was doing everything she could to get through a terrifying situation. Tessa Majors' story is truly heartbreaking, but it teaches us valuable lessons we shouldn't ignore. We need to be careful when we're out at night, especially in places where robberies happen often. We need to watch out for kids who might be going down a dangerous path, because sometimes they don't really understand how serious it is to hurt others. We should always keep in mind that behind every headline, there's a real person with hopes and dreams, just like Tessa. She wasn't just a name in the newspaper. She was a songwriter, a performer with a band, and had dreams of becoming a journalist. When we hear about crimes, it's important to remember that the victim was a real person with a life. We must do everything we can to stop these terrible things from happening again. If you think this story matters and want to honor Tessa's memory, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Every click counts. We spend a lot of time crafting stories like Tessa's with great care, and your support makes that possible. When you subscribe, you open the door to new stories, and you play a part in making sure that important lessons from heartbreaking cases like this one are not forgotten. Tessa Majors had so much ahead of her, a life filled with dreams to chase and talents to discover. It's heartbreaking to think about all the things she could have achieved. On December 11th, 2019, in a shadowy part of Morningside Park, a young girl faced a terrifying moment when 3 teenagers approached her. Their decision that day would change everything, leading to a tragic end. The suspects have been sentenced, and the legal battle is done. but the pain remains for all who cared for Tessa. Her story serves as a haunting reminder of the need for caution and compassion in our lives. Years after Tessa's death, the memory of that night still lingers, haunting and vivid. Barnard College and Columbia University continue to remind students about safety. They advise everyone to stick together when walking at night or to take the campus shuttles instead. There's something strange going on with the extra security near the park. The city decided to invest more resources into the area. Yet, there's no way to ensure that others will stay safe. In December 2021, a young man lost his life just around the corner, a chilling reminder that danger can lurk in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. Tessa's story made everyone see Morningside Park in a new way, revealing just how important it is to stay alert and aware. Some say that Tessa's murder was a crime that changed everything for a new generation. When people look at her face and read about her band, they start to understand that behind every number, there's a real person who never expected things to turn out this way. It's tough to wrap your head around the idea that kids who are still so young could be capable of such violent actions. One of the suspects was just 13 years old, while the other two were 14. It made you wonder what could lead them to this moment. They brought a knife to the park, searching for someone to confront. This is why dealing with juvenile justice can get really tricky. The system aims to treat kids in a way that's different from adults, believing that this approach will help them learn and grow better. But when a murder happens, the law can decide to treat them like adults for serious charges. This is what went down for the 14-year-olds. One received a sentence ranging from 9 years to life. The other received a sentence of 14 years to life. This means they can ask for parole after serving the minimum time, but they could still stay in prison if the board believes they are still a threat. The 13-year-old found himself in family court, a place meant for those even younger than him. The evidence hinted that he hadn't actually stabbed Tessa, but the mystery lingered in the air. He confessed to being part of the robbery. Tessa's parents are still angry that his punishment didn't last long enough. This story reveals just how surprising life can get in a bustling city. New York City buzzes with energy, filled with thrilling adventures and countless chances waiting to be discovered. Tessa headed to Barnard with big dreams. She wanted to dive into the music scene and soak up knowledge from the best professors around. What adventures awaited her there? Most kids who go to those schools and live in that neighborhood usually don't encounter real danger. Just one meeting with someone who means to do harm can turn everything upside down. The rise in robberies at Morningside Park felt like a dark cloud hanging over the neighborhood. If only the community had come together sooner, they might have been able to boost security or convince those kids to back off. But when Tessa finally came across them, it was already too late. Some people noticed that Tessa's father, a writer and professor, had a way with words when it came to talking about his daughter's death. His voice carried a weight that made everyone listen closely. He described how her voice had vanished, leaving their home feeling hollow without her messages and calls. Parents everywhere felt a shiver as they read his words, picturing the horror of losing their own child so suddenly. Tessa's story caught everyone's attention, not just the local news, and it's easy to see why. That coverage could bring about stronger security measures. It could spark conversations about ways to support kids in need before they resort to violent crime. As the days turned into weeks, Tessa's name began to fade from the headlines. Yet, for those who truly loved her, the memories would never disappear. They held onto her laughter, her smile, and the moments they shared, keeping her spirit alive in their hearts. The corner of Morningside Drive and 116th Street, right by that long staircase that goes into the park, is a spot where many remember the sad event that took place there. Sometimes, students come by to think about things. The city put up new cameras and brightened the streets, making Tessa's tragic death lead to changes that might protect others in the future. Yet, it feels both happy and sad. We always hope that these good changes won't happen at the expense of a young woman's life. Tessa is someone we should always remember. She was a dreamer, and she didn't just sit around. She took real steps toward making her dreams come true. She wrote stories, strummed her guitar, helped others in need, and dreamed of becoming a journalist. We can remember her by keeping our curiosity alive and doing our best to make a positive difference, just as she always did. We can remember her by being careful, watching out for our friends, and sharing with younger ones that violence only brings pain. The 3 teenagers ended up with nothing but prison sentences after their crime. Tessa's family would never see their daughter again. No one really comes out on top when a robbery ends in murder. Now that you've come to the end of Tessa's incredible journey, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button for more adventures. This really helps us tell important stories like this one. Even though Tessa's story is filled with sadness, we hope you've discovered important lessons. The dangers that can lurk in public places, the complexities of juvenile justice, how swiftly a life can be lost, and the deep love of a family that continues to hold her memory dear. Events like these can rattle whole cities, but they also have a way of uniting people, pushing them to come together and seek change. We can all do something to help. It might mean looking out for local kids, making sure our parks feel safe, or just being a bit more cautious. Every little action counts in stopping more sadness from happening. I really appreciate you sticking by my side until the end. This story was written in one go, using clear and straightforward language that anyone in 6th grade can easily understand. The length is just right to include everything important. Tessa's background, the increase in robberies at Morningside Park, the night she was attacked, the arrests of the young suspects, the court cases that followed, and the changes that came after. This story isn't a happy one, but sometimes we have to confront the hard truths to learn, and to remember those who left us too early. Tessa Majors will always be remembered for her bright smile, the music she created, and the dreams she held close to her heart. Let that be what lingers in our thoughts once we set aside the specifics of the court sentences and the security changes. Let's remember her spirit and do everything we can to look out for one another and stay safe. And please, remember to like and subscribe.